Nobody thought a phone company could out-accelerate a Ferrari. Nobody thought a battery company could out-jump a McLaren. Nobody thought a startup out of Croatia, a country most people couldn't find on a map, could outbreak a Bugatti. Wrong on all three counts. The car industry runs on badge bias. People pay for a logo, not for what's actually bolted underneath it. 100 years of marketing convinced buyers that speed only comes from a handful of Italian and French zip codes. 5 cars just walked in and made that math look stupid. One of them costs less than a loaded Cadillac Escalade and beats a hypercar in a straight line. The last one on this list broke 24 world records in a single afternoon, independently verified, no asterisks. Let's get into it. Number 5. The Hyundai Ioniq 5N. 641 horsepower, wearing a badge people still associate with rental car counters, and Grandpa's Sonata. 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds. For $61,500 out the door. That's the whole pitch right there. Hyundai didn't stop at raw numbers. There's a drift mode with 10 selectable stages, so you can slide it as gently or as violently as your insurance company allows. There's NE Shift, a fake 8-speed transmission complete with simulated shift shutter, because apparently silence was too honest for a performance car. Brembo brakes up front. 800-volt architecture that tops off the battery faster than you can finish a gas station coffee. It even has a fake engine soundtrack piped through the speakers, tuned to sound like something with pistons, on a car that doesn't have a single one. Why is this thing sitting on dealer lots instead of driveways? Badge memory. People hear Hyundai and think accent, not Autobahn. Nobody's cross-shopping this against a Porsche Taycan because their brain filed Hyundai under appliance a decade ago and never updated the folder. Here's the value gap. You're getting Porsche Taycan drama, full German rally car theatrics, for less than half the Porsche's sticker. If you've made it this far, you're clearly the type who does homework before dropping 60 grand on a car. Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming, because it only gets weirder from here. Number 4. The BYD Yangwang U9. This thing jumps. Not metaphorically. The active suspension can lift all 4 wheels off the ground at once and hop the car clean over a pothole like a mechanical bull. 1,287 horsepower. 0 to 60 in 2.36 seconds. Top speed north of 300 kilometers an hour in the standard car. And the Extreme variant hit 496, beating the Bugatti Chiron Supersport 300 plus, a car that costs 4 times as much. It'll dance too. Push a button and all 4 corners bounce in time to music, showing off at a party it technically wasn't invited to. Carbon fiber monocoque rated to survive an 11-ton side-load crush. A quad-motor setup that fires torque to each wheel independently, faster than a human foot could ever react. Under the Nürburgring's green hell, the Extreme variant ran a lap in under 7 minutes flat, a number that used to be reserved for cars with Italian last names. So why isn't anybody cross-shopping this against a Ferrari? Because BYD built its name on cheap batteries and budget hatchbacks in China. The brand recognition hasn't caught up to the engineering department. People see the badge and assume Econobox, not Nürburgring contender. Value gap, a $250,000 sticker, sure, but that buys tech a Ferrari owner can't get at any price. Suspension that jumps curbs, and a car that flat out embarrassed a Bugatti on a top-speed run. Maranello doesn't have an answer for a car that can leap a speed bump on command. Number 3 doesn't jump, it just refuses to lose. Number 3, the Chevrolet Corvette ZR1X. 1,250 horsepower combined, out of a twin-turbo V8 and a front electric motor bolted on for good measure. 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. A journalist who's driven a Bugatti Chiron through the Alps and a Lamborghini Revuelto through the canyons above Malibu called this the one that actually rearranged his understanding of what a road car can do. Starting price, $207,000. That's supercar money, sure. It's also Corvette money, which is exactly the problem. Under the hood is the same LT7 that solo makes over 1,000 horsepower in the standard ZR1, now paired with a front axle motor for all-wheel grip that launches like it's shot out of a cannon. Why is it sitting in the shadow of the European exotics? Because Corvette still sounds like the car your uncle bought after his divorce settlement came through. 6 decades of that reputation doesn't erase itself just because the engineering team quietly built the quickest production car General Motors has ever made. Value gap. For the price of a nicely optioned 911 Turbo, you're getting a car that makes a $1 million Lamborghini look parked off the line. So far, that's a Hyundai humiliating a Porsche, a BYD embarrassing a Bugatti, and a Corvette outlaunching a Lamborghini. That's already a strange afternoon for this industry, and every single one of those cars still runs on a name that classic gearheads would have laughed at 10 years ago. But we've been playing in the 1200 horsepower range this entire time. The back half of this list throws that number out completely. What's coming isn't about beating a supercar anymore. It's about making the whole concept of a supercar look slow. Number 2, the Xiaomi SU7 Ultra, built by the same company that makes your phone charger. 1,548 horsepower, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 1.98 seconds. Under 2 seconds, in a 4-door sedan you could genuinely put car seats in. It lapped the Nürburgring Nordschleife in 6 minutes 46 seconds, a number that would have been a supercar benchmark a decade ago. Carbon ceramic brakes standard, 6-piston front calipers, 4-piston rear, a cockpit built around telemetry and lap timing instead of cup holders. Starting price sits around $73,000, less than a well-optioned Escalade. The engineering team that built it came straight out of Formula E and endurance racing, not out of a smartphone assembly line. Why isn't this on anybody's wish list next to a Ferrari? Because the name on the trunk makes phones, not race cars. There's a wall in people's heads that says a consumer electronics company can't also build a Nürburgring weapon. Xiaomi drove straight through that wall at over 200 miles an hour. Value gap. Luxury SUV money for a car that runs with sedans, costing 4 times as much. If you're still here, you already know the badge on the hood means nothing anymore. Subscribe now because the last car on this list makes everything above it look like a warm-up lap. Number 1. The Rimac Nevera R. Built by a company that didn't exist 20 years ago out of Croatia, a country most people still couldn't point to on a map. 2,107 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 1.66 seconds, 0 to 249 miles an hour, and back to a dead stop in 25.79 seconds, over 2 full seconds faster than the previous record holder. 24 world records, set in a single validated test session. Not claimed, not estimated. Independently verified by the same third-party timing outfits that certify land speedruns. 4 electric motors, 1 per wheel, feeding off a battery pack engineered to dump its full output down to 60% charge without flinching. Only 40 of these will ever exist. Price tag lands around $2.5 million. Why isn't this the first name people say when they think fastest car ever built? Because Bugatti and Ferrari have 100 years of marketing behind them, and Rimac has about a decade and a founder who was building EV conversions in his garage not that long ago. Nobody expected the guy from Zagreb to outbrake and out-accelerate every legacy hypercar name combined, but a stopwatch doesn't care about heritage. Value gap. For less than the price of a Bugatti, you're driving the car that actually beat the Bugatti. On paper, on the track, and on every record that matters. Bugatti has a chateau's worth of heritage behind its badge. Rimac has a stopwatch, and the stopwatch wins every argument. The badge never told you what a car could do. It just told you what to expect. Every car on this list broke that expectation. Drive safe.